one-day national level webinar on blockchain technology. I now request our beloved principal to address the participants.
Good morning, all. I welcome all the participants, a resource person, and the technical team for this particular webinar. And thank you all for joining for today's webinar. Today, the Department of Computer Science of Hindustan First Grade College is presenting a webinar on blockchain technology. Dr. Ferdinand Joe, the lecturer, Data Science and Analytics, he is with us for today's webinar as a resource person. So I wholeheartedly welcome Dr. Ferdinand Joe. So participants, if you have any questions during the presentation, you can please type them in the message box and the technical team will bring them up during the presentation. And we will also have some time at the end for the questions. So before we go into the webinar, I would like to take 2 minutes of yours. That is, I want to give a brief intro about our institution. The prestigious Hindustan Group of Institution, it was founded in the year 1966 by late Dr. KCG Varghese. Today, the Hindustan Group of Institution, it has grown and we have around 7 units under this Hindustan Group. We have Hindustan College of Arts and Science, KCG College of Technology, Hindustan School, Hindustan Institute of Engineering and Science. So all these institutions are being located at Chennai. One of the unit of Hindustan Group, that is Hindustan First Grade College, is located at Mysore. So we, the Hindustan First Grade College from Mysore, we are organizing this particular webinar. So without taking much of your time, we'll go into the webinar. So thank you all for joining for this webinar. Once again, I welcome all the participants and the resource person for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. May I request Mrs. Savita KV, HUD and Assistant Professor of Computer Science to introduce the resource person.
It's my privilege to introduce today's resource person, Dr. Ferdinand Joe John Joseph. Working as lecturer in data science and analytics with Faculty of Information Technology, Thai Niji Institute of Technology, Bangkok, Thailand. Dr. Ferdinand is awarded PhD in Computer Science and Information Systems, School of Applied Statistics, National Institute of Development Administration, Bangkok, in the year 2015. He has published the papers in the international journals and also in the international conferences. Few are, in the year 2019, he has published a review of IoT implementations in environment and agriculture. In the year 2019, Twitter-based outcome predictions of 2019 Indian Journal Electronics using decision tree. IoT-based unified approach to predict matter pollution in Thailand. It's an international conference on recent trends in IoT and blockchain. Research areas are machine learning, blockchain technology, Internet of Things for data sciences. It's our pleasure indeed to have you amongst us, sir. We hope all the participants will have a great learning experience.
Thank you, Ma. It's time to announce our knowledge by being the part of the webinar. Over to you, sir.
Okay. I think you can see my screen now. Uh, I have some instructions. Somebody will be moderating this session, and for a smooth conduct of this webinar, I request the moderators to unmute or instruct the people who turn on their microphones. And if somebody click on the present button, then it will be a huge chaos, and it will create a lot of trouble for others to see my presentation. So please don't click on the present now button when I go ahead with my webinar, because I have my presentations on full screen mode, so I won't be able to see who is there online and who is turning on microphone or who is clicking on the present now button. So please don't click on the present now button, or please don't uh, turn on your microphones. So I request this 2 points for you to follow during the course of my presentations. If you have any questions, you can type it down in the chat box. So I will be answering all the questions at the end of the presentation. I hope you're all okay with my pointers. So today we are going to see about blockchain technology. It's a brief introduction about those who are new to this technology, and what you can do with this as a beginner. So I'm going to explain how this blockchain works and how you can start implementing your blockchain from like a beginner. This is my brief bio. As you all heard, I was introduced by the HOD of computer science. So I don't need to tell much about myself. So I have two things to explain today: the blockchain terminologies first, and then blockchain beyond the cryptocurrency. Okay. Are you okay now? Okay. Uh, so firstly, I'm going to tell about the blockchain terminologies and then go ahead with the blockchain beyond the cryptocurrencies. When we think about what blockchain is, it's like a mix of three different areas of databases, and then cryptography and network security, and then there's distributed systems. All these together put into one gray area. This particular intersection of all these three areas is what we call as blockchain. You will receive the PDF of these inked annotations of my presentations from your organizer. I think she can send this through the email along with your e-certificates. So this is the combination. This is like an interdisciplinary study. You need to have knowledge about some prerequisite courses. What are these prerequisite courses? Firstly, you need to know about data structures, that is linked list and tree abstract data type from data structures. And then this hashing is from network security. And then this decentralized servers from distributed systems. So these are the prerequisite courses you need to have before learning uh, the blockchain technology. So these are the prerequisites. So for these prerequisites, you need to know about blockchain as a decentralized ledger. So we need to know about this. For databases, you need to have DBMS, and for this cryptography, as I mentioned, it is a network security, and then for this distributed systems. So these are all the basic things you need to know when you need to learn about blockchain as a technology. So now I will explain about in brief about what blockchain is and how it works. This is the basic definition. Uh, as you all, some of you might have heard what blockchain is. most of your perceptions will be like blockchain is Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies like mining Bitcoin. Especially you guys are from Mysore, so there is a case study from Bangalore that one restaurant before the government put restrictions, they were accepting the payment bills of that restaurant by paying the Bitcoins. I don't know what exactly the name, but if you just go to YouTube and search some videos on Bitcoin in Bangalore, then you can get those kind of footages showing like the restaurants getting payments in Bitcoin. So my intention to this lecture and this technology is not just for that Bitcoin or this cryptocurrencies. There are so many other advantages in learning this as a technology. So this blockchain is a decentralized ledger. What is a ledger? If you go to a bank, you make some transaction, they will have one particular record. They will say whether it is a deposit or withdrawal of money. Or you can even say like a view balance. So each activity is what we call as a transaction. Like you can use a mobile banking or an internet banking. If you do any,
Excuse me, sir.
yes,
Sorry for the interruption. A
okay.
few participants are saying that the screen is not visible.
Maybe somebody is presenting now.
Is it visible, the participants?
No, it is not visible.
Visible, ma'am.
I think somebody clicked
Pin.
to start presenting. I will
We
give like
have
resume presenting.
we have
If
to
my
click the
present,
pin.
yeah, I have given it. Are you able to see this now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is what like we have this deposit or withdrawal and view balance. If you are not able to see my screen, I request the organizer to immediately turn on the mic and tell me whether somebody is presenting or I have to do something to resume the presentation. So
Sure, sir.
this deposit, withdrawal, or view balance, these are all the transactions when you go for internet banking. The same thing happens with the blockchain as well. Like you are sending money from one person to another. So in the meanwhile, how it makes that transaction safe and secure. So for example, Bob is making a transaction, and now I'm not going into the blockchain now. We have like Bob and Alice. So this is the basic internet banking. So Bob is making a transaction. Maybe he's depositing into the account of Alice. So this will be stored as one main database of the bank, like for example, SBI or HDFC, yeah, whoever the bank, whatever it is, they will have one server. Then this is what we call a centralized system. But in this transaction which happens in this database, if the middleman, like let's say a person named Alex is doing something wrong to this database and he is trying to channel out some money from this deposit to Alex's account and giving less amount of money to Alice, then that is like the account is hacked and that can create a problem of the transaction. So to
Hello,
rectify,
sir. Present PPT is not visible.
somebody is clicking the present now button. I'm telling again and again, please don't click on the present now button. How many times, I don't know. Okay, so please don't click on the present now button. If you click on this, I cannot continue the presentation. Okay, so this person is doing some wrong thing. So because it's a centralized server, that particular entry gets hacked. But how we can overcome using this blockchain? So the transaction happens from one part to another. So this is a transaction. So this transaction is happening and it is broadcasted to all the nodes in the network. So these transactions which are broadcasted to all the nodes means all the servers of that particular bank. For example, if a bank is having this blockchain as a technology, they will have nodes with multiple servers. So all these multiple servers will have a verification system. So they will have to validate that particular transaction. Only if they are able to get a validation from all the nodes, that particular transaction will become a verified transaction. And once the verified transaction is done, it will be stored in the database with all the nodes in the network, all the database. So that's why you get the transaction stored in this data over here and over here. The copy gets stored everywhere, the same thing. But if there is Alex coming into this system, if he makes any change in one database, that will not get approved over here. If Alex sends the data over here, it will get a no, because for this particular database, if he can make a change, and here it will not be updated and it will not be updated because it is a wrong transaction. So in that case, that particular transaction cannot be accepted by the blockchain system. So this is how blockchain increases the security of the transaction, and Bitcoin is more prevalent in this case. So now what a block in a blockchain looks like. You may wonder, a block means it is like a some wooden box or some metallic box, something like that. No, it's not like that. It's like a data structure. This is what we call as this is the data structure of blockchain. So here we have like block number 98, which is connected to block 99. 99 is connected to 100 and 100 is connected to 101. Let's see how what is inside this block number 101. So firstly, it has the version number info, like what is the version number? Like for first update, it will have like version 1. Second update, it will have version 2. Then it will have like nth version. And then this nonce is what we call as the noise signal. So this signal is added to make the hash value. And then this next part is what we call as the previous block. So what is this previous block? It's not the entire previous block. Each block will have a hash value. For example, this block will have the block number 9, hash value of 98, hash value of 99, and then hash value of 100. So since we are seeing the block number 101, so this block will have the hash value of 100. So this 100 will be stored over here. And then we have the timestamp, that is the latest update time. Then we have this Merkle. This is what we call as the root of the block. So this root is connected to the transaction ID list, and it will have each and every transaction stored in the blockchain. So for each transaction you make, it will get stored in this particular ID list. So now we are going to see about creation of blocks. Here I have a figure which shows like block 1, 2, and 3. So let's say we have an imaginary block number 0. So with this as a reference, we see this block number 1. So it has this hash of previous block header. So this block number 0 will have the hash of block 0. So this will go to the hash of previous block header. And then we have the Merkle root, and this Merkle root will be connected to the block 1's transactions. So all the transactions will be stored over here. So once this block is filled, you will have a hash value for this block number 1. Let's say it is hash number 1. So this hash 1 will go to the hash of previous block header, that is the block 2. The block 2's previous block is block 1, so that gets stored over here. Then again it has a Merkle root and it has a block 2. Likewise, it goes again and again for block number 3. Okay. Now, how many transactions can be in a block? That's the next part. Like we saw like how the blocks get created, and we saw like block number 1 will have some number of transactions, block number 2 will have some number of transactions. And what is the number of transactions? So the block size of a blockchain is fixed. So we can say like one block can have 1 gigabyte of data or 2 gigabyte of data or whatever. Like even you can make it like 100 megabyte or as per your wish if you create your own blockchain system. Now these transactions will be fit into this block. As I already mentioned about, you know about this previous hash I mentioned, and then the nonce, and then the Merkle root, and then the timestamp. Now how this Merkle root is connected. So let's say this TX3 is one transaction. So this transaction will convert into a hash value of 3. And then we have the hash value of 2. And this hash value of 2 and 3 combine together to form hash value of 23. And then here we have the hash of 1. So these all together will form one particular hash value. So this is how it connects to the Merkle root. I think somebody is turned on their microphone. Now I will give this illustration to explain how the transactions are getting stored in a block. Is there any problem? Somebody needs to turn off their microphone. Some user named Sony SBM has to turn off their microphone. Please don't make me to swap between my PowerPoint and this webinar software. This one will give an explanation on how the transactions get stored in a block. We have a transaction number A, transaction B, transaction C, and then transaction D. And then we have this hashes created for the transaction, and then hash for each and every transaction. Why we need to have a hash? For example, this is what we need to know about the hash algorithms. There are something called as MD5 or SHA. MD5 means like a message digest, or SHA means like a secure hash algorithm. So the beauty of this algorithm is like whatever be the length of the string, like it can be the transactions string. For example, we give a length of 100, or even you give a length of 200, or even you have another transaction which is having 90 as the length. It will do the digestion using the hashing algorithm, and the output will be the same size, same length. Let's say if we want a size of 80 as the length, the 100 one will convert to 80, and then this 200 one also will be converted to 80, and this 90 also will get converted to 80. Let's say we have a text called the Hindu.
Audio is not clear, sir.
Pardon?
Audio
you cannot
is not
hear my
clear,
voice
sir.
because somebody is turning on their
Voice is
microphone. I request the organizers to please check the people in the meeting details and see if anybody is turning on their microphone. Please instruct them to turn off their microphone. Is it clear now?
Yeah, sure, sir.
Is my voice clear now? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it will just make like the same size irrespective of the input size. So this is the input of hashing and this is the output of hashing. let's say I give input text of Hindustan. So this is the text. So let's say it gives a hash value of 1 A, B, C to 4. And if you change one character, instead of this uppercase H, I make a lowercase h. I make a text like this. If you, both the words are same, but only the thing, the one character is different. So even if you give a difference in one character, the entire hash will change. Like maybe 3HGI A1, something like that. I'm not sure how it makes, but it will entirely give a different hash value. So you have to be very careful with this hashing. So that's why even a small or a slightest change in the transaction values, it can keep a drastic change in the hash value it creates. So it is easy for the nodes to catch up the genuinity of the transaction. So this transaction A creates the hash value of A, and the transaction B creates the hash value of B, and C and D. So now this A and B combine together to form the hash of AB, and C and D will form the combined hash of CD. Now this AB and CD's hash values are again digested, like the same hash value hash algorithm over here. We have a hash algorithm over here, and then we have a hash algorithm over here, and this all combined together another hashing over here. So finally we get this hash of ABCD, and then it will have the hash of the block number 49. So this is the block 49. Here some hash value of 49. So this will come over here, and then the latest timestamp, and then the nonce. This is how one block is created. Clear? Now, that's what I explained in the last slide, like how the hashing works. You give the input data, but what exactly it takes in a blockchain? Like, what is the input data? It will have the timestamp and then other details. What are the other details? Sender, receiver, transaction type, and then the amount. So these are the information combined with this timestamp. It will be fed into the hashing algorithm. If you concatenate all these information, it will make one particular length of transaction, and then you feed it to the hashing algorithm, and then it will give a fixed output hash of fixed length. I'm sorry. It will be of fixed length. So this is how hashing works. Now the next slide, I go to the consensus. What is a consensus? I told you about something called as the nodes will be verifying the transaction. So when you think about the nodes, on what basis they give the verifications? That is based on some consensus. Consensus means you as a faculty or a group of students will have some kind of election or something like a decision making process. So you will get opinion from each and every one, and then you will come to a conclusion, okay, this has to be done like this. So this is what you are giving an anonymous consent that this decision can be taken. So likewise, there is a process on how to accept a transaction in a blockchain. So for this consensus, we mostly use this proof of work, proof of stake, and other methods. These proof of work and proof of stake are mainly used for Bitcoin. And there are so many other, like n number of consensus available. So what is a proof of work? I don't know whether you have some Bitcoin miners over here. People used to mine Bitcoins. Like they don't need to buy exactly. They used to have some gaming PC. That is, they need to have some GPU, and then they need to have like some high performance computers, and then some aircon or something like that. And they have like a whole setup, and they used to run the computer 24/7, and that will mine all the transactions in a block. So this person who is running this GPU and his computer for verifying the transaction will act as one node. So this person is one node. So he will also have a copy of all the transactions. So that means if I, as a person, giving this webinar to like around 150 people, so if I transfer some bitcoins to everyone or one particular person, so that
Excuse me, sir.
transaction,
So,
yes.
sorry for the inconvenience.
Mhm.
Presentation is not visible, sir. Again, the participants are requesting to present the
The
screen.
participants must be clear, and they should not click on the present now button. If they keep clicking on this, then I cannot help. I cannot see
And
this screen all the time. They have to be clear that they should not click on the present now button. If they click on, then I will not be able to show my screen.
one request, Praveen Pabu, please stop presenting the screen. We
If
request you.
anybody is presenting the screen again and again, please throw them out of this forum.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Okay. So if I send some Bitcoin to some person X over here, maybe the notorious person Praveen, who is giving the present now, I want to give some Bitcoins to him. That particular transaction goes to each and everyone. Every 150 of you will give this verification. So every one of you will be doing this mining. So what is proof of work? Whose opinion will be having an upper hand? Like you all come to a consensus, but there will be someone who is influential, who can say something to change your decision. So this person who has done more number of work will have a trustworthiness in that particular network. So he can do the influence on the particular transaction happening. So this is what we call as proof of work. And then proof of stake. Proof of stake means like the person who is having more cryptocurrencies. Richer one will have a more influence. So that's what we call as proof of stake. And now we have four different types of blockchain networks. We have public blockchains. That is the actual blockchain. Like blockchain has to be transparent in its system. And then private blockchain is like actually in public blockchain anybody can join, but in private blockchain you need somebody's permission to join. And there are something called as semi-private and consortium blockchain. They claim this as a blockchain system, but if you see the reality of blockchain, these are not actual blockchain. So we have this public blockchain with everybody can join, and they are transparent. Examples are like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And consortium, we have like permission. There will be some companies managing the network. So that is the middleman. Actually, if you have a blockchain system, there should not be any middleman. There should not be any influence of the middleman. So if it is a private blockchain, you need to have some permission to join. If it is a middleman, even semi-private only can have a middleman. A private also can function as a public blockchain. Next, we have blockchain as a service, or in short, we can call it as a BaaS. It's something like the service-oriented architecture you learned before, like software as a service, or infrastructure as a service, or cloud as a service, something like that. These are all the old ones. When it comes to blockchain as a service, you use the cloud like this Amazon Web Service or Azure or Bluemix, or now you can have this Alibaba, the new one, new cloud. And then these clouds will have the softwares necessary to set up your blockchain network, and you have to pay a nominal amount of money to make use of this blockchain system. So when we think about this public blockchain, we have this buyer and seller, and the buyer will send the money through the block transaction, and that will be sent to the distributed database. And then we have like trusted peering, like this is one peer, and this is another peer, and this is another peer. Here, all these are peers. To understand the working of these peers, I would like to explain you something called as torrents. How this torrents work? For example, the person who was continuously, let's say the person who was continuously clicking on the present now, he has one computer and he is having some movie, some latest movie like a KGF or something like that. And he has stored it in the cloud network, and one person is coming to download from him. The 100% of the packets from this main person, person number one, it goes to the person number two. Now the third person comes. Now the copy is with this person number one and the person number two. So 50% from the person number one and 50% from the person number two will be coming to download. So that's why more number of peers or the seeds, more number of seeds, you will get faster download. So when you have a fourth person, you get it from the person number one, you get it from the second and the third. And then fifth one, it keeps increasing the number of people who are sharing, and you will get the faster download. Now you can understand what is a peer. Now in this peer, you have like so many people in this network trying to verify the transaction. So you need to get a verification over here, 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 and even here, like the trustless peering. Everyone has to give a transaction verification. Then this transaction will be accepted, and then the money will be credited to the seller. If there is anyone not having a consent, for example, this particular node not having a consent, then it says no, then the transaction will be aborted. If it is yes, if all yes, commit the transaction. If it is a no, abort the transaction. So this is how it works. Then we have private blockchain. In private blockchain here, that's what we have the middleman companies like some banks, bank number A or bank number B. This one is like trusted peering. That is, you have to see, like somebody have to verify your transaction, but you will know who is doing it. I'm sorry. Then this is not actually the blockchain. Recently, Facebook came across with a system called Libra. If you check on what is Libra in the internet, like Libra and Facebook, you have to check it like that. Then they will have like some nearly 50 companies along with Facebook. They created a blockchain-based system for all their transactions. This includes people from Visa, MasterCard, and so many other fintech systems. So this is not a blockchain-based system. That's why the implementation is also keeping on delaying. So we saw about different types of blockchain. Now I'm going to explain about the sidechain. So before seeing about this sidechain, you need to know about the currency exchange between Nepal and India. There is one particular agreement between these two countries that the economy of Nepal will be protected by the Indian government. That is, every Indian rupee will be traded at the rate of 1.67 Nepali rupee from the olden days. But if you calculate with the normal conditions of what we calculate with the other countries, then the Nepali currency will go very weak. So to standardize their economy, India is doing this kind of help to Nepal. Like they are standardizing the Nepalese economy with the help of Indian GDP. So that is the analogy I would like to present for this side chain. Whenever we trade this Indian rupee to Nepali rupee, for each Indian rupee, even though our currency is strong or weak, they will get like this rate of 1.67 Nepali rupee. And then they can also trade their Nepali rupee for 1.67 Nepali rupee for 1 Indian rupee, something like that. This agreement is I'm explaining just because to make you understand this side chain. So consider this side chains as Nepal. Like blockchain is like Indian rupee, and then side chain is like a Nepali rupee. So then we can trade this coin and put it into this one particular chain. Like this one we call as the main chain, and this one we call as the side chain. This yellow one is a side chain. This one is a side chain. This purple, blue, all are side chains. Different side chains. So likewise, we trade the Indian rupee with the Nepali rupee. We can have some predetermined currencies as side chains. So we store these coins in a different denomination and store it in the side chain, and we can trade it back with the main blockchain. So it will not get affected much with their values, same like the Nepali rupee. And in the side chain, it is a separate blockchain attached to another main blockchain, or otherwise referred as main chain. They are attached to each other using a one-way or a two-way peg. Either you can transfer it one way, or even you can make it like two-way. So that is what, like main chain and side chain can be traded at a predetermined rate. That is the reason why I gave this analogy of India and Nepal. Now I'm going to say the types of tokens available in blockchain. In token-based blockchain, we have non-intrinsic and intrinsic token. In non-intrinsic token, we have the smart contract. The smart contract is the next level of blockchain that it is going with the tokenless thing. So in token blockchain, we have like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so many other coins available. But in non-intrinsic, we have the smart contract. What exactly is a smart contract? It is an auto executable code which has some conditions. For example, we rent a home to live for some time. We have some contract between us and the landlord. So they will have some conditions like you have to pay a rent something, some amount, and then you should not do this, you should do this, you should perform these things. And if you satisfy all the conditions, and then the contract will be active. If anything is wrong, then they will cancel the contract. So likewise, here we have some set of conditions between the sender and the receiver. So if all the conditions are satisfied, then the money is sent to the receiver. If some condition is wrong, then the whole thing will become null and void. So this is like automatically checking the condition and automatically having it valid, something like that. So if we have this system, we don't need these people. Like you don't need a government agent, you don't need a legal advisor, and you don't need a financial advisor. So when you have blockchain into the financial setup, these three guys will be losing their jobs in mass. So if you are the blockchain developer, then you can stay stable in the uh, job market. So you can understand how automation takes a lot of jobs at stake, and how being an IT student can sustain this kind of situation. And there are many advantages for blockchain. You are decentralized and you have a transparency, and it is immutable and it is available to many, and the security is more, and simplification is done for organizational operations. And then we have a lot of faster dealings, and it is cost saving then, because it reduces the middleman. And there are similarly for any scientific advancement, equivalent to the advantage, there will be disadvantages as well. The scalability, adaptability, privacy regulation, and it's an immature technology. It's very new. Like, this technology has been developed in the past 1 decade. Like, it's actually in the test level, it was developed in the 1990s, but for some electronic digital document signing. But in the case of real blockchain system, it started its implementation from 2008. That is when Satoshi Nakamoto created the Bitcoin blockchain. Bitcoin is not the only blockchain. Bitcoin is one among the blockchain networks. There are n number of blockchain networks. Bitcoin is one among them. Like Bitcoin, you have Ethereum, you have uh, Ripple, Stellar, and so many blockchain networks are available. So you can choose. Even if Hindustan College wants to create their own blockchain network, and you can create your own coin of Hindustan coin, and if you create for your individual person, then for a person X, then you can have like X coins as well. So this is the transfer rates of each and every crypto coins compared with the currently available payment options. Right now, Ripple is the only crypto coin which is having a faster transaction rate. They can do up to 1,500 transactions per second. But in the same case, Visa can do 24,000, because Visa has been in practice for long, and Ripple needs to do the decentralized checking and so many things. So the time will be more, so it is computationally more complex. And now I'm going to deal with the blockchain beyond the cryptocurrencies. Just watch this scenario, like how a Uber or Ola based taxi reservation system can be changed. Like, in before implementing the blockchain, I mean, by using the current system of blockchain, I mean, without the blockchain, you have one centralized server where the person will send the transactions to the uh, server, and that server will be with the office, and the executives will assign the cars to the customers. But when you use the blockchain, it is decentralized, so you can directly contact the car and ask for a service, and then that will be updated in the ledger, and the transaction is committed, and then the cars will come directly to the customer. So this is how blockchain eases the process of the normal business. Now I'm presenting this Gartner's hype cycle. This hype cycle is given by many people called Gartner.com. And if you go to this website, you can get the hype cycle for any advanced trends. If you hear about one particular advanced trend and you want to see about the scope of this particular area, then I would recommend you to look for the Gartner's hype cycle. A Gartner's hype cycle is available for the year 2019. For 2020, you have to look next year. So in this latest blockchain hype cycle, you can see a lot of dark blue circles. Dark blue circles means those areas have a scope of 5 to 10 years, and those which are having the golden triangle, it is like more than 10 years, something like here. So if you see, like the blockchain in healthcare or blockchain in gaming, they are like more than 5 years, like 5 to 10 years you can stay in that industry. But if you still want to have more, like, I'm sorry, the blockchain for healthcare is in the golden triangle. So it can have more than 10 years of scope. And then smart assets, blockchain in 3D printing, digital cryptocurrency, fiat, blockchain society. These all are having more than 10 years of scope as of the Gartner's hype cycle for blockchain. So you will see from the slides which I share at the end, and you can get to know what areas will be more popular. You can see this blockchain in supply chain and blockchain in logistics and the transportation. So these are more important nowadays. Like people are implementing blockchain in this kind of business as well. So the scope is increasing for this particular area. And we are providing blockchain as a curriculum and elective for the third and the fourth years in a bachelor's degree since 2018 in my faculty. So this is the curriculum which we have developed, which we have 5 units with the blockchain's introduction, and then go ahead with the fintech and cryptocurrencies. And there they will learn about the smart contracts and alternative cryptocurrencies, and then a basic introduction of cryptography and information security. And then the fourth unit will give an introduction about the decentralized system, and then give an explanation about the most popular consensus algorithms. And the final unit will have some case studies. So this is the curriculum design of this blockchain course. And blockchain beyond the cryptocurrencies, we have so many applications for the industries, supply chain and logistics, healthcare, security, and user identification. And in government, they use it for online voting. Maybe blockchain can be, if blockchain is implemented with the electronic voting machine in India, maybe the claim on the trustworthiness of the EVM can be the trustworthiness can be increased. Like people can trust more on the blockchain-based system because nobody can tamper the system. And decentralized social networks and blockchain for IoT. This is currently in the lead now. So these are like some applications which are beyond the Bitcoins or Ethereum cryptocurrencies. So these applications are currently into implementation so far. So I'm not saying that it is not impossible to hack this blockchain-based transaction, but because of the advancement of decentralized verification system, it is really very difficult to hack one particular server. But if you hack one server, that is not enough. Like you need to hack all the nodes in the network, all the servers in the network, which is practically impossible as of now with the highest performance computers. And blockchain is used for the healthcare, and now we have like patient generated data, and they are sent to some handheld devices, and like you have the health applications and the implants and some kind of peripherals or the sensors, the wearables and peripherals. These are the sensors. So you get the data from the patients. Okay, I think my screen is not having any issues. Okay, so this data is sent to the clinical records, and then that clinical records will transmit this data among the nodes, the blockchain. And once the verification is done, that transaction will be stored in the database, and this will have some verifications from people like the health providers, patient, and the pharmaceutical research companies, and then the payers. So all these people will provide validation, and then the healthcare data is stored. And we call that each transaction in the health domain as EHR. EHR means e-health records. So this is what we call as EHR. So we have the patients, and from the patients we we get the electronic health records, and then they are transmitted to a decentralized storage, and all the nodes have to give a consensus along with the checking from the doctor, therapist, nurse, and the medical technician. So all of these people give a verification or validation, and that's how these records are stored. And these are mainly used for medical data management, drug development and supply, and insurance claim, billing, and fraud detection. So these are the applications of healthcare. Like mostly for insurance claims, billing, and fraud, this is the most wanted area in healthcare. Like many people used to fake the data and used to provide the doctored documents so that they can get the insurance claimed money. So when you use blockchain, it is not possible to tamper the previous history, and you cannot claim wrong information. And then most importantly, we have the blockchain in supply chain management. It is used for sending goods from one place to another. You can track the transaction, like what is the distance traveled by that particular vehicle, and how the goods are getting safe or not, are they going on time or not. All these things could be managed by using the blockchain based log systems. So it is having more visibility for procurement with data analytics, and it eliminates the chances of fraud with incorruptible information. So that's more important. It eliminates the chances of fraud, and it will ensure durable, robust, and secure processes. And digital contracts and payments simplify the finance. Supply chain can be even combined with IoT, like Internet of Things devices, small microprocessors or microcontrollers to connect with some sensors with those devices, or your storage systems, or your retailer, or your customers. These all data can be stored in blockchain, and that can even empower supply chain. So for blockchain for governance, like it is used for record management, identity management, voting, and even for intellectual property protection. I mentioned about the voting already, like that you can utilize this blockchain for a replacement for even the electronic voting machine. But when it comes to record management, previously you might have heard that the Aadhaar data has been spread by some company, or some third-party provider has got a data breach into the Aadhaar server. That became a kind of criticism in the past. But when you use this blockchain, it is not possible to gain access to these kind of records, and you can give more safety to these kind of data with the servers. So this is the process of using blockchain for the government. This is actually this is a draft which is done by the government during the first tenure of the current Prime Minister in India. So these are the processes which they plan to implement blockchain in India. Because the Indian government has been clear that they are not going to accept Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but they want blockchain as a technology to empower the payment systems and other government systems. So many people are working for blockchain-based government solutions. So if you apply for any research funding from your scientific organizations, then they give a lot of importance to these kind of proposals. So that's all about my lecture today. And I have given my blockchain-based lecture in my YouTube channel, Ferdin Speaks, and you can subscribe to get my videos on whenever I publish a new one. And you can follow my Facebook page, Ferdin Speaks, where you can get information about my training programs and all my academic activities. And if you are looking to connect to my LinkedIn, then this is my user ID. And in GitHub, I used to share the source code of all the IoT-based systems which I used to develop. So you can gain access to the source code which I publish. And then if you want to write to me offline or online, you can take my email ID ferdin@tni.ac.th. If you have any questions, please type them on the chat box in the Google Meet.
Now this
I will see the
Thank you,
questions.
sir.
I will see the questions.
Now the session is open for discussion. You can post your question in the chat box.
One question from Akhil.
Okay.
What are the potential applications of blockchain in IoT currently in practice?
Currently, I cannot say anything in practice because right now people are developing these kind of systems or they are in research level only. But if you take the sensors data from some kind of confidential places that you need to safeguard the minute information from systems like missile systems or atomic energy, then you can use these IoT systems to incorporate the blockchain-based nodes. So each IoT node can act like a blockchain node. So that's how they are developing it right now. But the system in implementation, I don't think it has been in practice right now.
What are the kind of project that can be done in the education sector using blockchain? This question was asked from Ms. Shilpida.
Okay. Yeah, I saw the question. What kind of project can be done in education sector using blockchain? So actually, like you can create in colleges, if you have your own grading systems, maybe you can use some kind of reward points for the people who are doing really well. And then that can be stored in a blockchain-based ledger. The students can share these reward points as a way of giving sharing the rewards with others or something like that. And if you want to have a transparent system, then blockchain can be implemented in that. So this is mainly for a transaction between two parties. So if you have any transaction based systems for payment of fees or payment of any other services, then you can use this blockchain for education.
Next question from Navya Ravi. In the education section, how blockchain technology is helpful?
That's what I think I have explained this in the last question itself. Like if you have any payment system in the education, like payment of fees to the university or having the examination answer scripts going to another nodal centers for evaluation. So these transactions can be stored in a blockchain. So somebody has asked, so without blockchain, we can apply blockchain technology. Yes, Bitcoin is one particular cryptocurrency. Like Bitcoin, there are so many. Like the person's name is Shanmuga Raja. You can even create a Shanmuga coin and you can create your own blockchain network. By using that, you can create any payment system and you can also create that as your own blockchain. So it is possible. There is no need for Bitcoin only to be transferred. Bitcoin is like a US dollar, and if you want the Indian rupee, then you have to create your own Indian rupee, right? Something like that. Is it possible to modify the data once it is written in a block? Of course, it is possible, but that transaction which goes into the list of nodes has to be approved by all the remaining nodes in the network. Then the data can be modified and rewritten in the block. But the hash value will again change. And then Manoj Kumar has asked like what type of permission I would require for private blockchain. It is something like the owner of that blockchain has to give some link for you to join that particular network. Otherwise, you won't be given access to even sign up for that particular blockchain system. And then Is blockchain resource intensive? I don't know, and I don't understand what exactly you are asking. What are the job roles of career building if we learn blockchain? See, right now in India, many companies are trying to develop blockchain for banking or fintech systems. So if you have fintech, financial technology, or any other blockchain-based systems like blockchain developer, blockchain architect, so these are the careers which are available with blockchain, and a very limited number of people are available for using blockchain development. So you can choose this as a career. Maybe you can have more scope. In career, how blockchain will help. That's why I mentioned like very limited number of people are available for developing blockchain. So there are some languages called Golang and some other programming languages like Viper are available. If you learn these, then if you are able to create your own blockchain network by yourself, then you have your own scope. Like you can have more number of years to sustain any application of blockchain in environmental protection. I haven't seen anything like that. Maybe if you have any ideas, you can like it's not having any limitation. You can implement blockchain in any industry, even environmental protection also you can use it. You said that all the blocks have the hash of previous block. When we start, we won't have a previous block. The same like linked list, it will have a null hash. That is the hash with the first block. Nalina Kumari, she has asked, is that possible to use blockchain in AI? If yes, how it can be used? In AI, we have like a network fraud detection, so you can like a proof of work I mentioned, like people will be checking the transactions in the block. So you can use like instead of these nodes, you can have automated nodes which check for the patterns of the data stored in the blockchain using some machine learning or deep learning based systems. Then you can do it. How many banks use and implement blockchain in India? In India, it's a big zero because I see in many countries like the banks recruit blockchain-based developers or blockchain engineers as a part of their bank to develop these blockchain-based systems. In Switzerland, there are this Credit Suisse and the Swiss Bank or United Bank of Swiss. They use this blockchain technology. And then someone named Navya Ravi has asked like any tools available for blockchain. There is a system called a Hyperledger IDE. So you can try to develop your blockchain using them. And there are some online test nets are available with blockchain networks like Stellar and even with Ethereum. Is it possible to modify the data once it is written? I have answered this question before. You can, provided the block is verifiable. Said that all the blocks have the hash of previous block when we start. I think I have answered this one as well. The previous hash is the null one. Similar questions. What basic knowledge need to learn? Firstly, you need to start with the test nets of Ethereum or any other blockchain network and start to learn how you can transfer some transactions from one person to another or from one node to another and get it verified, something like that. And then go ahead with the smart contracts, then definitely you'll be able to do. Now, what is Hyperledger Fabric? This is the developing platform of blockchain-based system actually. Like you have like Jupyter notebooks to create some Python-based application, something like that. You have this Hyperledger Fabric. Is blockchain research intensive? I don't understand what he is exactly want to ask. I have told about the job roles like blockchain developer, blockchain engineer, and then blockchain architect. These are the job roles which are currently available with many companies. I think don't look for these as ITES like TCS, CTS, or something like that. Just go for the startups. There are a lot of startups on blockchain and they are hiring. And if you go for these kind of companies, I think in Bangalore, there will be like tons of these companies you can try. You said that all the blocks of hash of previous block. The same question. And blockchain technology used for security and software updates. Of course, you can use. If you have any transactions to be verified by using some consensus algorithm, then you can use blockchain for software update security. Preferred languages to implement smart contract. There is a language called as Golang. It will be quite similar to Java. So if you know Java, it is easy to go with the Go language, Go language. What's your view on which one to use, public or private blockchain? I prefer public blockchain because that is the real blockchain. Said that all the blocks have the hash of the same question again. Should there be any legal development that government should undergo to accommodate such technology? Actually, government is quite anxious that they need to uh, comply with the safety standards. Like people do the transactions with some trustless peering, and if something wrong happens, they won't be able to legally find where that is coming from, how it is happening. So to regulate that, the government is not able to do it right now. Maybe when they start to have some regulations or some kind of such systems into force, then definitely they can do it. Is it enough robust and secure to overcome the security risk? Right now, the risk is very less. That's what I can say. I don't say that there is zero risk. There are risks, but when compared to the traditional system, this is very less. What basic algorithm can be used in beginning to implement blockchain? Start with the proof of work, then you can go ahead with the other algorithms. Because proof of work is the most basic one. It has been into force for more than a decade. How is blockchain ledger different from ordinary one? A blockchain ledger is a distributed ledger. That is, you have so many servers to verify the transaction, but the ordinary will have like only one server. So if you change that one server transaction, the whole system is changed. But in distributed system, you have to change all the nodes in the network. Otherwise, it's not possible. Is it economical to implement blockchain in logistics in a country like India where technology is not advanced? Why you are saying that the technology is not advanced? It is advanced, but the thing is like in your mentality, like uh, you have a lot of logistic industries going on. If you implement the blockchain in this system, then the transformation will be like more, and you can have more advancements. It's not going to affect you. Like you just need to have something like a software, and you can do it. Basic knowledge, I think I have given in the initial parts of the slides. Like you need to have a strong database fundamental, and then with this network security and distributed systems. Blockchain, what are the nodes exactly mean? Like each and every server, like there will be multiple servers storing the transactions. So each server will be like a node, and the server will have some executable code which depends on the validity of the transaction. I have explained about the Hyperledger Fabric. What is the advantages and limitation of blockchain? Advantage, it is more safe and secure. The limitation is like right now you don't have any legal restrictions on blockchain. There is not much of rules or some laws which are controlling this blockchain based system. Any tools I will recommend to you? Hyperledger. I'm not sure which companies are exactly developing. Just search for them in the job sites with the job roles of blockchain developers, blockchain engineers, or blockchain architects. Is it enough robust and secure to overcome any security issues or risk? As you say, how can we start the blockchain establishment right from scratch or zero level? Yeah, you have to firstly learn. You might be learning Java as a part of object-oriented programming. Just using that as a fundamental, learn this Golang, and then start learning with the smart contracts. If you go to YouTube and see like how to write your first smart contract, they give like online tutorials. Some browser-based tools are available with Ethereum itself. Something called as a Remix, something like that. You just search for them. You will be getting some tutorial. Some 30-minute tutorial are also available. You can just follow the instructions, start writing your own smart contracts, and try to make a transaction from one node to another, something like that. I think the responsibility with the organizer to rectify the feedback link. Some people are saying it is not working. Can blockchain be used outside the cryptocurrency field? Of course it is. The main essence of this presentation is to say that blockchain is not only just Bitcoins or Ethereum. So you have n number of possibilities to use blockchain beyond the cryptocurrencies. How can we get data from the block? Because each block will be encrypted and we cannot remember the hash value. You cannot remember the hash value, but the system can encrypt and decrypt by itself. So definitely it can be possible. Recently, there was a news that the Russian e-voting system has suffered a node attack. Can you say what was that about? I haven't read about this Russian e-voting system, but I have read about Bitcoin's security lapse, and that has drastically reduced the value of Bitcoin. As I already mentioned, that this kind of security aspect is higher than the other systems, but I will not say that the risk is zero. So it is there are some risk, but it is relatively lesser than the previous system. That's what I can say. Okay, I think that's all with the questions. Is there any other questions you can ask in the chat? I think I have answered all the queries in the chat box. Which cryptographic algorithm best is used in Bitcoin blockchain? Like they will not reveal you what algorithm they are using for Bitcoin because it's like a highly secured system. Like if they say like MD5, then you will go with the cryptanalysis of MD5. Someone named Puhalendi Ritik has shared their screen. Please don't do it. So like if you say like the Swiss banks I mentioned, they have some very highly secured. It's not even AES. It's much safe and secure than the AES algorithm they are using for the security of the Swiss banks transactions. So if you want to have a more secure one, then you can have your own cryptographic algorithm. That is possible. But the output should be a hash value of a fixed length, and it should not be able to be tampered by any hash attackers, or it should have like maximum privacy or maximum security ensured. And somebody is saying the certificate is not being issued. I think the organizers will be sending you later. I will be sending the PDF of these inked annotations in the PowerPoint to the organizers, and they will be sending the copy of this presentation as well.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you for the overwhelming response. I express my heartfelt thanks to resource person, principal, HOD, and all the participants for making this webinar a grand success. Thank you, one and all.
Somebody has asked my GitHub profile. It is available in my PowerPoint. I will send it to the organizer and she will send it to you.